Please, I didn't do anything wrong. Why is it getting colder?
They laughed when she collapsed into the snow, thin, shaking, and barely breathing, right in the center of the winter feast, as if her pain was part of the entertainment. Lyriel Sorn's fingers dug into the frozen ground, nails cracking against ice as the cold bit through her torn dress, her breath coming out in weak, broken clouds. The scent of roasted meat and spiced wine filled the air, cruel and distant, while her own scent, faint, starving Omega, was drowned beneath layers of dominance and celebration. Around her, wolves stood in thick furs and polished armor, their laughter sharp, their eyes glittering with mockery. No one moved to help. No one dared. Not when Brindle Core stood at the head of the feast, watching her like she was nothing more than a stain on his perfect night. Lyriel's vision blurred, but she still saw him, his smirk, the tilt of his head, the satisfaction in his eyes. He had ordered this. He had dragged her out into the snow, and now he watched her break. She should have known her place, someone muttered. She's lucky she wasn't killed, another replied. Lyriel swallowed hard, her throat dry, her body trembling uncontrollably as memories clawed through her mind. Warm rooms turned cold, whispered promises shattered, the bond she thought was real ripped apart like it meant nothing. Just days ago she had believed she belonged here, that she had a place in this pack, that someone powerful had seen her. But the truth had come like a blade in the dark. She had been used, a pawn, a mistake, the bond she felt. A lie crafted by wolves who needed her weak, obedient, blind. And when she started asking questions, they threw her away. A boot slammed into her side. Lyriel gasped, the air tearing from her lungs as pain exploded through her ribs. She curled instinctively, her body too weak to fight back, her wolf too quiet to protect her. Brindle stepped closer, his shadow swallowing her as he crouched just enough to meet her eyes. "You thought you were special," he said softly, his voice almost gentle, which made it worse. "An Omega with no lineage, no power, trying to climb where you don't belong." His hand grabbed her chin, forcing her to look up at him. "This is mercy. Remember that." Then he shoved her back into the snow like she was nothing. And then the wind changed. It wasn't just colder, it carried something else. A scent, sharp, commanding, ancient. The laughter died. Every wolf froze. Even Brindle straightened slowly, his expression tightening as the air itself seemed to shift under the weight of something far more dangerous than cruelty. The guards at the edges of the feast stepped back instinctively, their instincts screaming before their minds could catch up. Lyriel felt it too, even through the haze of pain. A pull, deep in her chest, something that made her fatting wolf stir for the first time in days. Her breath hitched as that scent wrapped around her, fierce and unfamiliar yet terrifyingly right. Heavy footsteps crushed through the snow. Once, twice, closer. No one spoke. No one moved. And then he stepped into the firelight. Kaler Vyerk. The Alpha. The true Alpha. His presence hit like a storm breaking. Tall, broad, wrapped in dark furs dusted with snow, his piercing gaze swept across the feast and stopped. Not on Brindle, not on the crowd. On her. Lyriel. For a moment, everything went still. The crackling fires, the whispering wind, even the wolves holding their breath. His eyes darkened, something unreadable flashing across his face as his gaze took in her condition. The torn dress, the blood on the snow, the way she struggled just to breathe. Then the scent changed. It snapped, like something inside him broke. A low, dangerous growl ripped from Kaler's chest, deep enough to make the ground feel like it trembled beneath it. The air thickened with pure, unfiltered fury, so intense that several wolves staggered back without realizing it. Brindle's confidence faltered for the first time, his jaw tightening as he took a step forward, trying to reclaim control. "My Alpha," Brindle began carefully. "This is not." Kaler moved. No warning, no hesitation. 1 second, he stood across the fire. The next, Brindle was on his knees. A crack echoed through the clearing as Kaler's hand closed around his throat, forcing him down with a force that sent shockwaves through the frozen ground. Gasps broke out, panic flashing across faces as the balance of power shifted in an instant. Kaler didn't even look at him. His gaze remained locked on Lyriel, burning, unreadable, terrifying. Who, Kaler said, his voice low and deadly, did this to her? No one answered. No one dared. The silence stretched, suffocating. Then Brindle choked out, "She is nothing." Kaler tightened his grip. The words died. And for the first time, fear, real bone-deep fear, flooded the feast. Kaler finally looked at him. "You touched her," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a sentence. Lyriel tried to focus, her vision dimming, her body giving up as warmth slowly slipped away into the snow beneath her. But even as darkness crept in, she saw it, the shift in Kaler's eyes. The fury wasn't just anger. It was something deeper. Something dangerous. Something personal. His head turned slightly, just enough for his voice to carry across the entire pack. "Bring her to me." The command shook through every wolf present, impossible to ignore, impossible to disobey. But no one moved. Because they all felt it. That bond. That impossible, undeniable pull. And then Lyriel felt it too. Clear. Burning. Real. Mate. Her eyes widened just as her body finally gave out, her consciousness slipping as the last thing she saw was Kaler stepping toward her, his fury shaking the entire pack apart. And the terrifying realization echoing through her fatting mind. The alpha wasn't just angry. He was claiming her. The moment her body went limp, something inside Kaler Vyerk snapped into a colder, more dangerous form of fury. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, dropping to one knee in the snow without hesitation, without care for the watching pack. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alphas did not kneel. Not for anyone. Not in public. Not ever. But Kaler didn't seem to notice, or care. His focus was entirely on the fragile Omega lying in the snow as if she weighed nothing and everything at once. His hands hovered for a split second above her, as though afraid she might break from even the slightest touch. Then he gathered her carefully, lifting her into his arms. She was freezing, too light, too still. His jaw clenched as a low, lethal growl vibrated through his chest again. Whoever had done this hadn't just punished her. They had intended for her to die. "Get a healer, now." The command cracked like thunder. Wolves scattered instantly this time, fear overriding whatever hesitation had held them before. No one wanted to be the next target of that voice. Kaler adjusted Lyriel against him, pulling her closer, trying to shield her from the cold with his own body heat. Her scent was faint, too faint, and laced with pain, starvation, and something else that made his chest tighten. Suppression. His eyes darkened. That wasn't natural. Someone had been weakening her. Deliberately. His grip tightened slightly as realization settled in, heavy and dangerous. This wasn't just cruelty. This was planned. Behind him, Brindle coughed violently in the snow, clutching his throat as he struggled to breathe. The crowd shifted, uncertain, watching, waiting to see if their acting leader would regain control of the situation. Kaler didn't even look back at first. His thumb brushed lightly against Lyriel's cheek, wiping away a streak of blood frozen against her skin. Her face was pale, her lips slightly parted, her lashes dusted with frost. Too close. She had been too close to death. And something primal, something ancient inside him, refused to accept that reality. "You let this happen," Kaler said quietly. The words weren't loud, but they carried. Every wolf heard them. And every wolf felt the weight behind them. Brindle forced himself to stand, though his posture lacked its earlier arrogance. "My alpha," he began, his voice strained but trying to regain authority. "She broke pack order. She defied." Kaler turned. Slowly. And that was worse. The firelight caught his face just right, illuminating the shift fully now. His eyes darker, sharper, something wild sitting just beneath the surface. The kind of control that existed only because something far more violent was being held back. "Say another word," Kaler said softly, "and I will forget you were ever part of this pack." Silence slammed down instantly. Brindle's mouth shut. No one moved. Because they all understood what that meant. Exile would have been mercy. Kaler looked back down at Lyriel, his expression tightening again. But now there was something else there, something that didn't belong in a battlefield or a power struggle. Recognition. The bond pulsed again. Stronger this time. His mate. Not a mistake, not a coincidence, not a political move. Fate. And someone had tried to destroy her before he could even find her. A healer rushed forward, dropping to her knees beside him, hands already glowing faintly as she reached for Lyriel. "She's severely weakened," the healer said quickly, her voice tight with urgency. "Starvation, internal bruising, frostbite beginning in her extremities, and—" she hesitated. Kaler's gaze snapped to her. "And what?" The healer swallowed. "There are traces of wolfsbane in her system, repeated doses, not enough to kill quickly, but enough to suppress her wolf, to keep her weak." The air shifted again. This time, it was worse. Because now it wasn't just anger. It was understanding. Slow, sharp, lethal. Kaler lifted his head, his gaze sweeping across the gathered wolves like a blade. No one met his eyes. No one dared. The truth was there now, hanging heavy between them all. This wasn't discipline. This was torture. "Who authorized it?" Kaler asked. Still no one answered. But they didn't need to. His eyes landed on Brindle. And stayed there. Brindle held his ground for exactly 3 seconds before his control cracked. "She was a liability," he said, the words coming faster now, more defensive. "An Omega without lineage, asking questions about pack bloodlines, about your absence, about—" The growl that tore out of Kaler this time wasn't controlled. It shook the trees. Lyriel stirred faintly in his arms, her body reacting instinctively to the sound, seeking warmth, seeking safety. Kaler's hold on her shifted immediately, gentler now, protective. His thumb brushed her arm in a slow, grounding motion as if trying to anchor her even in unconsciousness. "Enough," he said. Brindle fell silent. Kaler rose to his full height, still holding Lyriel as though she belonged there, as though there had never been any other place for her. Snow fell lightly around them now, quiet, almost peaceful in contrast to the tension slicing through the clearing. "She is under my protection," Kaler said, his voice carrying effortlessly. "From this moment forward, any harm directed at her is considered an act against me." A ripple of shock spread through the pack. Because that wasn't just protection. That was a declaration. A claim. Brindle's face darkened, something desperate flashing in his eyes now. "You would choose her," he demanded, "over your own pack." Kaler didn't hesitate. "She is my pack." The words hit harder than any physical blow. And everything changed. But Kaler wasn't finished. His gaze sharpened, locking onto Brindle with terrifying clarity. "And if I find out," he added quietly, "that you intended for my mate to die." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Because everyone already knew. Kaler turned away, dismissing the entire gathering with a single movement as he began walking toward the pack house, Lyriel held securely against him. The healer followed quickly, already preparing what she would need. Behind them, the winter feast stood frozen in silence. No laughter. No music. No celebration. Only fear. And the slow, creeping realization that they had made a mistake they could not undo. As Kaler stepped into the warmth of the pack house, Lyriel shifted slightly in his arms, her lips parting as the faintest whisper escaped her. "Don't send me back." His steps stopped. His entire body went still. Slowly, carefully, he looked down at her. And something in his expression changed again, something deeper than fury, sharper than power. "No one," Kaler said quietly, his voice firm in a way that left no room for doubt, "will ever touch you again." But as he carried her deeper inside, away from the eyes of the pack, one thought settled heavily into his mind. If she had been asking questions about his absence, then someone had been lying to her long before tonight. And that meant this wasn't over. It had only just begun. Lyriel woke to warmth she did not recognize, and for a moment, she thought she had died. Cold was gone. The biting, endless cold that had lived in her bones for days, maybe longer, had been replaced by something soft, steady, and almost frightening in its gentleness. Her body sank into thick furs, her fingers brushing against fabric that didn't tear beneath her touch. The air smelled different too, clean, rich, laced with something deep and grounding that made her chest tighten without warning. She inhaled slowly, her lungs protesting, and that scent wrapped around her again. Strong, commanding, safe. Her eyes fluttered open, vision blurring before slowly sharpening into a room she had never been allowed to enter. Large, dimly lit. Carved wood walls, heavy drapes, a fire crackling low in the corner. The Alpha's quarters. Panic flickered instantly, her body trying to move, to sit up, to escape. But pain shot through her ribs, forcing a sharp gasp from her lips. Don't. The voice was low. Close. Lyriel froze. Her head turned slowly, and there he was. Kaler Vyerk stood near the bed, his presence filling the space without effort, his eyes already on her like he had been watching her long before she woke. He hadn't changed much since the feast, still dressed in dark furs, still carrying that same quiet, overwhelming power. But something about him felt different now. Less distant, more focused, entirely on her. Her breath caught as the bond stirred again, stronger this time, no longer faint or confusing. It pulled at her, deep and undeniable, sending a wave of heat through her chest that clashed violently with the fear tightening her throat. She swallowed hard, her voice barely more than a whisper. Why am I here? Kaler didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer instead. Each step slow, controlled, careful. Like she might run. Like she might break. You're alive, he said finally. Lyriel's fingers tightened against the fur beneath her. That wasn't the question. A flicker of something crossed his face, surprise maybe, but it was gone just as quickly as it came. You're in my quarters, he replied. I know that, she said, a little sharper now despite the weakness in her voice. Why? Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Then, because you're mine. The words hit harder than anything Brindle had done to her. Lyriel's breath caught, her heart stuttering painfully in her chest as confusion, fear, and something dangerously close to hope collided all at once. No, she said quickly, shaking her head, the movement making her wince. No, that's not possible. I would have known. I would have felt it before. You did, Kaler said. She stopped. You felt something, he continued, his voice quieter now but no less certain. You just didn't understand it. Lyriel's gaze dropped, memories flickering, strange pulls she couldn't explain, moments where her wolf stirred without reason, dreams that felt too real to ignore. She had dismissed them, forced herself to, because nothing good ever came from believing she was meant for something more. That doesn't make it real, she whispered. Kaler stepped closer again. Now he was beside the bed. Too close. The bond reacted instantly, a sharp electric pull that made her inhale sharply as her body betrayed her, leaning just slightly toward him. His jaw tightened as he noticed, but he didn't touch her. Not yet. It is real, he said, and someone made sure you didn't realize it. Her eyes snapped back to his. What does that mean? Kaler's expression darkened, the earlier fury returning, but colder now, more controlled. The healer found wolfsbane in your system, repeated doses. Lyriel stared at him. No, she said immediately. That's not no, I would have known. You wouldn't, he cut in. Not if it was given in small amounts, mixed into food, water slowly weakening you, suppressing your wolf. Her stomach twisted violently. Food. Her mind flashed back meals that tasted slightly bitter, drinks she had been forced to finish, days where she felt too tired to think, too weak to question anything. She had blamed herself, thought she was just lesser. They said I was weak, she whispered. Kaler's gaze sharpened. You were made weak. The words settled heavily between them. Rewriting everything. Lyriel's breathing became uneven, her thoughts spiraling as pieces started to fall into place. Brindle's constant watch over her, The way questions about the alpha were always redirected. The way she had been isolated without realizing it. They didn't want me to ask questions, she said slowly. No, Kayla replied. They didn't. Her eyes lifted again, locking onto his. About you. It wasn't a question. Kayla didn't deny it. Instead, he said, what did they tell you about my absence? Lyriel hesitated. Then, that you abandoned the pack. The temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. The fire crackled louder, but it didn't help. Kaler's expression didn't change much, but something behind his eyes did. Something sharp, dangerous. They told you I left, he repeated. She nodded slowly. They said you didn't care what happened here, she added, her voice quieter now. That Brindle was the one holding everything together. Silence. Then a low, humorless sound left Kaler's throat. Of course he did. Lyriel frowned slightly, confusion cutting through her fear. Then why did you leave? Kaler looked at her for a long moment. Really looked at her. Like he was deciding something. Then, I didn't. The words hit like a shockwave. What? She breathed. I was sent away, he said. On false intel. A fabricated threat near the northern borders. By the time I realized it was a lie and returned, his gaze hardened. Brindle had already taken control. Lyriel's heart pounded. That means... He planned this, Kaler finished. From the beginning. Her stomach dropped. Everything shifted again. But why me? She asked, her voice breaking slightly now. I'm nobody. I don't have a bloodline. I don't have power. Stop. The word was firm. Sharp. Lyriel flinched. Kaler exhaled slowly, his tone lowering again, but the intensity remained. You are not nobody. You don't know that, she shot back, frustration breaking through now. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. He stepped even closer. Close enough now that she could feel his warmth. Close enough that the bond pulsed painfully between them. I know, he said quietly, that they went through a lot of effort to keep you weak, silent, and unnoticed. Her breath hitched. That doesn't happen, he continued, to someone who doesn't matter. Lyriel's defenses faltered. Just slightly. Because deep down, a small part of her had started to wonder the same thing. But before she could speak again, a knock slammed against the door. Hard. Urgent. Kaler's expression shifted instantly, the calm focus snapping back into something colder, more alert. Enter. The door opened. A guard stepped in, his face pale, his posture tense. My alpha, he said quickly. We have a situation. Kaler didn't move. Speak. The guard swallowed. Brindle is gone. Silence. Heavy. Then... He's taken half the warriors, the guard added, his voice tightening. And he's heading toward the eastern border. Kaler's eyes darkened. Because they both knew what was out there. Rival territory. War. Lyriel's heart dropped. He's starting something, she whispered. Kaler didn't respond immediately. But the shift in the room was immediate. Decisive. Dangerous. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was escalation. And as Kaler finally turned toward the door, his voice low and lethal. Prepare the pack. Lyriel felt the bond flare again. Stronger. Sharper. As one terrifying realization settled in. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about a war that had already begun. The moment the door closed behind the guard, the air in the room shifted from quiet tension to something sharper, like the calm before a blade is drawn. Kaler didn't move right away. He stood still, his back half-turned, shoulders squared, as if calculating 10 different outcomes at once. Lyriel watched him carefully, her heart still racing, her mind struggling to keep up with everything she had just learned. Brindle hadn't just hurt her. He had been playing a larger game all along, a game that now threatened the entire pack. Her fingers curled slightly against the furs as unease crept deeper into her chest. He's going to start a war, she said softly. The words felt heavy on her tongue, but they were true. She could feel it. The same instinct that had kept her quiet for so long now screamed at her that this was only the beginning. Kaler finally turned, and the look in his eyes confirmed it. Yes, he said simply. No hesitation, no doubt. Lyriel swallowed. Then you have to stop him. I will. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it made her chest tighten. Because it sounded like a promise carved in stone, one that would be fulfilled no matter the cost. You're not strong enough yet, he added suddenly. Her brows pulled together. What? Kaler stepped closer again, his gaze dropping briefly to the bandages wrapped around her arms, the faint bruising along her collarbone. Your body is still recovering, he said. The wolfsbane hasn't fully left your system. Your wolf is unstable. Lyriel's jaw tightened. I didn't say I was going with you. You were thinking it. She hesitated. Because he was right. I'm not staying here while everything falls apart, she said, pushing herself slightly upright despite the pain. This is happening because of me. No. The word cut through her instantly. Sharp, final. This is happening because of him, Kaler corrected, his tone hardening. Do not take responsibility for someone else's betrayal. Lyriel held his gaze, something stubborn rising in her despite her exhaustion. You said he targeted me for a reason, she pushed. That means I'm part of this whether you like it or not. Silence stretched between them again. Then Kaler exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair in a rare show of visible frustration. You are part of this, he admitted. But not like this, not injured, not weakened. I'm not weak, she snapped. The words came out faster than she expected. Stronger, too. Kaler's eyes flickered slightly. Not with anger. With something else. Recognition. Then prove it, he said quietly. Lyriel blinked. What? His expression sharpened again, but now there was a different edge to it, something testing, measuring. If you want to stand in this fight, he continued, then you need control over your wolf. Right now, you don't even know what you are. Her chest tightened. What I am, she repeated. Kaler held her gaze. You think Brindle feared you for no reason. Lyriel's breath slowed. Uneven. Because that question, it echoed. Deep. Unsettling. I told you, she said quietly, I don't have a bloodline. Kaler stepped closer until he was standing right beside the bed again, his presence pressing in around her. Then, why didn't the wolfsbane kill you? He asked. Her heart skipped. What? Repeated exposure weakens wolves, he explained. Eventually it breaks them, but you're still here, alive, your wolf is suppressed but not gone. Lyriel stared at him. Because she didn't have an answer. I've seen wolves twice your size collapse under less, he added. The silence that followed felt different now. Heavier. Because something didn't add up. I don't understand, she whispered. Kaler's gaze softened just slightly, but the intensity didn't fade. You will, he said, but not here. Lyriel frowned. What do you mean? We don't have time to wait, he replied. If Brindle reaches the eastern border and provokes a fight, this turns into a full-scale war. I need to end it before that happens. And you think I can help? She asked. I know you can. The certainty in his voice sent a strange, unfamiliar warmth through her chest. Fear. And something else. Something steadier. But first, he added, we need to wake your wolf. Lyriel's breath caught. Because that didn't sound simple. How? She asked cautiously. Kaler didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out. Slowly. Carefully. His hand hovered near hers again, just like before, but this time he didn't stop. His fingers brushed against her skin. And everything changed. The bond ignited. Not a spark. A flame. Lyriel gasped, her entire body tensing as heat surged through her veins, chasing away the lingering cold, the weakness, the numbness that had dulled her senses for so long. It was overwhelming, too much, too fast, as her wolf stirred violently beneath the surface, pushing, clawing, waking all at once. Her grip tightened instinctively around his hand. And she didn't let go. Kaler's jaw clenched, his own control slipping for just a second as the bond snapped fully into place between them. The air around them thickened, charged, alive with something ancient and undeniable. "Focus," he said, his voice lower now, rougher. I can't," she choked out, her breathing uneven as the sensation intensified. "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "Feel it, don't fight it." Her eyes squeezed shut as the energy surged again, stronger this time, her body reacting in ways she couldn't control. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, her senses sharpening. She could hear the fire crackling, the wind outside, even the faint movements of wolves beyond the walls. It was too much. "I'm losing control." "No," Kaler interrupted, stepping closer, his other hand coming up to steady her shoulder. "You're finding it." Lyriel's eyes snapped open. And for a moment, just a moment, her gaze wasn't entirely human. Something flickered beneath the surface. Something stronger. Kaler saw it, and his expression shifted instantly. Not to fear, to realization. "There you are," he murmured. Lyriel's breath hitched as the surge finally settled slightly, leaving her shaken, but awake in a way she had never felt before. "What was that?" she asked. Kaler didn't answer right away. Because he was still watching her, studying her, like he had just seen something he hadn't expected. Something important. "You're not just an Omega," he said finally. The words hung in the air. Heavy, unavoidable. Lyriel's chest tightened. "Then what am I?" Before he could answer, a loud horn echoed through the packed grounds. Once, twice, 3 times. A warning. Kaler's head snapped toward the door. "Scouts," he said. His expression hardened instantly, the moment of discovery gone, replaced by urgency. Lyriel's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Kaler didn't hesitate this time. "It means we're too late." The words hit like ice. Because if the scouts were signaling now, Brindle had already reached the border. And whatever he planned had already begun. Kaler turned back to her, his gaze sharp, decisive. "Get up," he said. Lyriel blinked. "What?" "You said you weren't weak," he reminded her. Her heart pounded. Vast. Loud. Because this was it. No more hiding. No more waiting. The war had started. And somehow, she was standing right at the center of it. Lyriel's feet hit the ground before her fear could catch up, and the moment she stood, her body betrayed her with a sharp wave of dizziness that threatened to drag her back down. But she didn't fall. Not this time. Her fingers tightened against the edge of the bed, breath uneven, as the strange heat from earlier still pulsed beneath her skin, alive, restless, refusing to fade. Kaler was already moving, grabbing a thick fur cloak and stepping toward her without hesitation. He wrapped it around her shoulders in one swift motion, his hands firm but careful as he secured it in place. "Stay close to me," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Lyriel nodded once, even as her thoughts raced. Nothing about this felt normal, not the sudden strength in her limbs, not the way her senses felt sharper, clearer, not the way her heart didn't feel weak anymore, just fast. Too fast. The moment they stepped outside, the world had changed. The once lively pack grounds were now in motion, warriors rushing, voices raised, weapons being gathered, orders being shouted across the snow-covered clearing. The festive decorations of the winter feast still hung in place, but they looked wrong now, out of place against the rising tension. The scent in the air had shifted too, less warmth, more steel, more fear, more anticipation. Lyriel's gaze moved quickly, taking everything in, her senses catching details she would have missed before, the crunch of boots, the distant howl of scouts, the sharp tang of adrenaline lacing the air. And then she felt it again. That pull, stronger now, not just toward Kaler, but outward, toward the forest, toward the east. "Do you feel that?" she asked suddenly. Kaler glanced at her. "Yes." Her stomach tightened. "What is it?" His jaw set. "The border." Lyriel's breath caught. Because it didn't just feel like a place. It felt like something calling. Like something waiting. A warrior approached quickly, stopping just short of Kaler, his chest rising and falling hard. "My Alpha, the Eastern Scouts' confirmed movement. Brindle has crossed into rival territory. There's already been an encounter." "How many?" Kaler asked. "3 injured on our side, 1 missing." Silence. "Then prepare a unit. We move now." The warrior nodded and rushed off. Lyriel's chest tightened. "He wants you to follow him." Kaler didn't deny it. "Of course he does." "This is a trap," she said. "Yes." The simple agreement made her frown. "Then why walk into it?" Kaler turned to her, his expression calm, but sharp. "Because if I don't, he controls the narrative. He starts the war on his terms." Lyriel's lips parted slightly, then closed again. Because she understood. This wasn't just about stopping Brindle. It was about control. Power. Perception. And if Kaler lost that, they lost everything. "You're still coming with me," he added. Her eyes snapped back to his. "You just said I wasn't ready." "You're not," he replied. "But whatever Brindle planned, it involves you." Her chest tightened again. And she hated that he was right. They moved quickly after that. Through the pack. Through the forest. Into the cold. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The sounds of the pack faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of something heavier, something tense. Lyriel stayed close to Kaler just like he told her to, her steps uneven at first, but then steadying as that strange energy inside her continued to build. It wasn't overwhelming anymore. It was guiding. Her senses stretched further, sharper, pulling her attention in different directions. The snap of branches far away, the shift of wind against trees, the faint scent of unfamiliar wolves lingering in the distance. Then, she stopped. Kaler turned immediately. "What is it?" Lyriel's head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing as she focused on something ahead. "There's blood," she said. Kaler's expression hardened. "Where?" She pointed. And without another word, they moved. Faster now. Pushing through trees until the scent hit fully. Sharp, metallic, fresh. They broke into a clearing. And everything stilled. 3 bodies. 2 barely conscious. 1 unmoving. Lyriel's breath caught as her gaze locked onto the still one, something deep in her chest tightening painfully. "He's not dead," she said quickly. Kaler glanced at her sharply. "How do you know?" She stepped forward instinctively, ignoring the protest in her ribs. "I can feel it." The words left her before she could question them. But they were true. Kaler watched her carefully, then nodded once. "Check him." Lyriel dropped to her knees beside the fallen wolf, her hands hovering uncertainly before she placed them lightly against his chest. Cold. Too cold. Her heart pounded. "Come on," she whispered. Nothing. Her breath hitched. Then, that energy surged again. Stronger than before. Her fingers tightened instinctively. And something shifted. The wolf beneath her gasped. Air rushed back into his lungs as his body jolted slightly, his chest rising sharply as if pulled back from something dark and distant. Lyriel jerked back in shock. What did I? Kaler was already beside her, his eyes locked on the recovering warrior. "You brought him back," he said. Her pulse roared in her ears. "That's not possible." But it had just happened. right in front of them. The other two injured wolves stared, wide-eyed, fear and awe mixing in their expressions. "What are you?" one of them whispered. Lyriel froze, because she didn't know. And that terrified her more than anything else. Kaler rose slowly, his gaze shifting from the wolves back to her. And this time, there was no doubt in his expression. No uncertainty. Only realization. "Brindle didn't weaken you because you were nothing," he said quietly. Lyriel's chest tightened. "Then why?" she asked. Kaler's voice dropped. Lower. Heavier. "Because you're something rare." The wind shifted. Cold. Sharp. Carrying a new scent into the clearing. Kaler's head snapped toward the trees instantly. Lyriel felt it too. Not distant this time. Close. Too close. Branches cracked. Snow shifted. And then, figures stepped out from the shadows. Not their pack. Not allies. Rival wolves. Armed. Waiting. Watching. And at the center of them, Brindle Core. Smiling. "Well," he said smoothly, his gaze locking onto Lyriel with unsettling satisfaction. "That didn't take long." Kaler stepped forward instantly, placing himself slightly in front of her. "Protective. Dangerous." "You crossed the border," Kaler said coldly. Brindle shrugged lightly, "And you followed." His eyes flicked to Lyriel again. "That's all I needed." Lyriel's stomach dropped. Because suddenly, this didn't feel like war. It felt like a setup. A trap. And she was standing right in the middle of it. Brindle's smile widened slightly as his voice lowered, almost amused. "Do you feel it now?" he asked her. Lyriel didn't respond. But her body did. That energy inside her. It surged again. Stronger. Wilder. Uncontrolled. Brindle's eyes gleamed. "Yes," he said softly, "there it is." Kaler's stance shifted instantly, his voice sharp. "Don't." But it was too late. Because whatever had been buried inside Lyriel for so long was no longer staying buried. And as the air around her began to change, everyone felt it, including Brindle. And the look on his face said everything. This was exactly what he wanted. The air thickened the moment Lyriel's power surged again, turning the quiet forest clearing into something tense. Unstable, like the world itself was holding its breath. Snow lifted slightly from the ground around her, not in a storm, but in a slow, unnatural drift, as if something unseen was pushing outward from her body. Lyriel's chest rose and fell rapidly, her pulse loud in her ears, her fingers trembling as that same overwhelming energy coursed through her veins. But this time it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like awakening. Her senses stretched further than before, sharper, clearer, every heartbeat around her echoing like distant drums. She could hear the rival wolves shifting their weight, smell their unease cutting through the cold air, feel Kaler's presence just in front of her, steady, controlled, but ready to explode if needed. "Lyriel." Kaler's voice was low. Grounding. But even that barely reached her. Because something deeper had taken hold. Brindle stepped forward slowly, his smile no longer mocking but eager. "Do you understand now?" he asked, his voice smooth, calculated. "Why I couldn't let you walk around this pack freely?" His gaze swept over her, sharp, assessing. "You were never weak, you were untrained." Lyriel's eyes flicked to him, something unfamiliar burning behind them now. "And you thought hurting me would fix that," she said, her voice quieter, but heavier. Brindle chuckled softly. "No, I thought breaking you would make you controllable." The words hit, but they didn't break her. Not anymore. Kaler stepped slightly closer, his presence anchoring her just enough to keep the surge from spiraling. "You don't need to listen to him," he said, his tone firm. "Focus on me." But Brindle wasn't done. "She doesn't even know what she is," he continued, tilting his head slightly. Tell her, Kaler, or are you just as in the dark as she is? Silence. That was all the answer Lyriel needed. Her chest tightened. You don't know either, she realized. Kaler's jaw clenched. Not completely, he admitted. Brindle's smile widened. Then let me help, he said. Kaler growled, low and dangerous. You've done enough. But Brindle ignored him. His gaze locked onto Lyriel. Your kind hasn't existed in generations, he said, his voice lowering, almost reverent now. Not since the old wars, not since the bloodlines were wiped out. Lyriel's breathing slowed. Not from calm. From focus. What kind? She asked. Brindle's eyes gleamed. Healer-born, he said, but not just a healer. Lyriel frowned slightly. Because that didn't sound right. Not entirely. Brindle took another step forward. Kaler shifted instantly, his body tensing, ready to strike, but he didn't move. Not yet. Most healers can mend wounds, Brindle continued. Close cuts, ease pain, but you, his gaze sharpened, you reverse death. The clearing went silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Lyriel's heart pounded once. Hard. That's not possible, she said. But her voice lacked conviction. Because she had just done it. Brindle noticed. And smiled. Exactly, he said. It's not supposed to be. Kaler's expression darkened, his eyes flicking briefly to Lyriel before returning to Brindle. You're making assumptions. No, Brindle replied smoothly. I'm recognizing value. His gaze shifted again. Back to her. Do you know what wolves would do for power like yours? He asked. Do you know how many wars were fought trying to control it? Lyriel's stomach twisted. Because suddenly, this felt bigger than just their pack. You didn't suppress me to protect the pack, she said slowly. Brindle's smile faded slightly. No, she continued, her voice steadying. You did it to control me. There it was. The truth. Clear. Sharp. And dangerous. Brindle's eyes darkened. Control is a strong word, he said. Lyriel shook her head slightly. No, it's the right word. Kaler stepped forward now, fully placing himself between them, his presence cutting off whatever Brindle might have said next. This ends now, he said, his voice carrying authority that didn't need to be raised. Brindle laughed softly. You still think you're in control, he said. That's almost admirable. Then, he lifted his hand, and everything moved at once. The rival wolves lunged forward, breaking the fragile stillness in an instant as the clearing exploded into chaos. Snow scattered under pounding feet, claws and blades flashing as the first clash echoed through the trees. Kaler moved just as fast, shifting slightly to shield Lyriel as he intercepted the first attacker with brutal precision, his movements sharp, efficient, controlled fury unleashed without hesitation. Stay behind me, he ordered. But Lyriel didn't stay still. She couldn't. Because the moment the fight started, that energy inside her surged again. Stronger than before. Unstable. Calling. One of the rival wolves broke through, heading straight for her. Lyriel's breath caught. Her body reacted before her mind could. Her hand lifted instinctively. And the moment it did, the wolf froze mid-step. Like something invisible had grabbed him. His body jerked, then dropped. Not dead, but unmoving. The clearing shifted again. Because now everyone had seen it. Lyriel stared at her own hands, her pulse racing. I didn't mean to. Don't stop. Kaler's voice cut through everything. Sharp. Focused. She looked up. He was watching her, not with fear. With certainty. You're not losing control, he said. You're learning it. Another wolf lunged. Lyriel turned instinctively. The energy surged. And this time, it didn't just stop him. It threw him. Back. Hard. He slammed into a tree, collapsing instantly. Lyriel's breath came faster now. Stronger. The fear was still there. But it was changing. Turning into something else. Something steadier. Brindle watched it all unfold, his expression no longer calm, but thrilled. "Yes," he said under his breath. "That's it." Kaler heard him. And this time, he moved. Vast. Deadly. He crossed the distance between them in seconds, grabbing Brindle by the collar and slamming him back into the snow with a force that shook the ground beneath them. "This ends now," Kaler growled. But Brindle didn't resist. He smiled. Even then. "You're too late," he said. Kaler's grip tightened. "What did you do?" Brindle's gaze flicked past him, toward Lyriel, and Kaler followed it. Instantly, his chest tightened, because Lyriel wasn't just standing there anymore. The air around her had changed. Completely. The snow at her feet was lifting again. Higher this time. Faster. Her eyes, not fully human anymore, glowing faintly. And the energy. It wasn't just reacting now. It was building. Uncontrolled. Dangerous. Kaler released Brindle instantly. "Lyriel," he called, stepping toward her carefully. She didn't respond. Her breathing was uneven. Her hands trembling. Not from weakness. From too much power. "Lyriel, look at me." "Nothing." Brindle laughed behind him. "You can't stop it," he said. "You don't even know what she becomes when it fully awakens." Kaler ignored him. Stepping closer. Slower. "Lyriel," he said again, softer this time. "Focus on me." Her head tilted slightly. Just enough. Like she heard him. But wasn't fully there. The energy spiked. The ground beneath them cracked faintly. Kaler's heart pounded once. Hard. Because he realized something. This wasn't just power. This was something ancient. Something lost. Something no one had seen in generations. And if she lost control now, it wouldn't just be the enemy at risk. It would be everyone. Including her. Kaler took one final step closer, his voice dropping low, steady, certain. "Come back to me." The bond pulsed. Strong. Bright. And for a moment, just a moment, Lyriel's eyes flickered. Like she was still inside it. Fighting. But then, the energy surged again. Stronger than anything before. And the forest around them shook. The ground didn't just tremble, it answered her. A deep, cracking sound tore through the frozen earth as roots shifted beneath the snow, trees groaning as if something ancient had woken beneath them. Lyriel stood at the center of it, her body rigid, her breathing uneven, her eyes no longer fully hers. The faint glow had intensified, pale and dangerous, casting unnatural light across the clearing. Snow spiraled upward around her in slow, violent currents, not falling, but rising. Wolves on both sides staggered back instinctively, their instincts screaming louder than their pride. Even the rival pack hesitated now. This wasn't power they understood. This wasn't something they could fight. "Lyriel." Kaler's voice cut through again, strong, controlled. But there was something else in it now. Urgency, not fear for himself, fear for her. She didn't answer. But her fingers twitched. Like she was trying. Like she was still inside it somewhere, trapped beneath the surge. "Come back to me," he said again, stepping closer despite the pressure in the air pushing against him. Every step felt heavier now. Like the forest itself was resisting his approach, but he didn't stop. He wouldn't. Behind him, Brindle laughed again, louder this time, almost breathless with excitement. "Do you see it now?" he called out. "This is what I tried to contain. This is what you were too blind to recognize." Kaler ignored him. Completely. Because nothing else mattered. Not the rival wolves. Not the war. Not even the betrayal. Only her. "Lyriel," he said again, his voice lower now, quieter, but sharper in its focus. "You're not alone." That word, alone, hit something. Deep. A flicker passed through her expression. Small. But real. And Kaler saw it. "There you are," he murmured, taking another step closer. The energy surged again. Violent this time. A shockwave rippled outward, knocking several wolves off their feet as the ground split slightly beneath her. Branches cracked overhead, snow exploding from the trees as the forest reacted to her instability. Kaler didn't move back. Didn't flinch. He stepped into it. Into her. And this time, he reached for her. His hand closed around hers. The moment their skin touched, everything snapped. Not violently. Not explosively. But sharply. Like a thread pulled tight. Lyriel gasped. Her entire body jolting as the energy crashed inward instead of outward, folding back into her chest in a sudden, overwhelming rush. The glow in her eyes flickered violently, then dimmed, her knees buckling as the power collapsed inside her like a storm forced back into the sky. Kaler caught her before she hit the ground. "Breathe," he said firmly, pulling her closer, one arm steady around her as his other hand remained locked with hers. Lyriel's chest heaved, her breath uneven, her body shaking, not from weakness this time, but from the sheer force of what she had just held, and barely controlled. I couldn't stop it," she whispered. "You did," Kaler said immediately. Her head shook weakly. "No, You came back," he corrected, his voice steady. "That's what matters." Her breathing slowly began to even out. Not calm, but stable. The forest settled with her. The trees stilled. The snow fell again. Natural. Silent. Like nothing had happened. But everyone knew better. Because now they had seen it. All of it. The power. The control. The truth. Kaler's grip on her tightened slightly as he lifted his head, his gaze shifting, cold, lethal, toward Brindle. And this time, there was no restraint left. "You're done," Kaler said. Brindle smiled. "Still, even now." "That's where you're wrong," he replied. His hand lifted slightly, and the forest moved again. But not from Lyriel. From the edges. More wolves stepped out. Dozens this time. Not just rivals. Something else. Their scent was wrong. Sharp. Corrupted. Lyriel felt it instantly, her body tensing as her senses reacted before her mind could process it. "Kaler," she whispered. "I know," he said. His voice had changed again. Lower. Darker. Because this wasn't part of the original plan. Brindle's smile widened slowly. "Did you really think I would rely on just one pack?" he said. "You were always going to come for me. I needed something stronger." The wolves behind him shifted. And as they did, their eyes caught the light. Too bright. Too hollow. Not natural. Lyriel's stomach dropped. "What are they?" she asked. Kaler didn't hesitate. "Not fully wolves anymore." The words were quiet, but heavy. Brindle's expression sharpened with pride. "Enhanced," he corrected. "Stronger, faster, harder to kill." Lyriel's grip tightened instinctively on Kaler's arm. "You experimented on them." Brindle didn't deny it. "They volunteered," he said, "for power." Kaler's jaw tightened. "Power without control is nothing," he said coldly. Brindle chuckled. "We'll see." Then, he stepped back, and the corrupted wolves surged forward. Faster than before. More aggressive. Uncontrolled. Kaler moved instantly, shifting Lyriel behind him as he intercepted the first wave with brutal precision. His movements sharper now, more lethal, every strike calculated to disable fast. But there were too many. And they didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't feel pain the same way. Lyriel's breath quickened as she watched them push forward, relentless, overwhelming, forcing Kaler and the others back step by step. "They're not stopping," she said. "No," Kaler replied, blocking another attack. "They won't." Her heart pounded, because she understood now. This wasn't a fight they could win like this. Not with numbers. Not with force alone. And then, that energy inside her stirred again. Not wild this time. Not uncontrollable. But present. Waiting. Her gaze lifted. Focused. "They're alive," she said suddenly. Kaler glanced back briefly. "What?" "They're still alive," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "Whatever he did, it didn't remove that." Another wolf lunged. Kaler blocked. But he was slowing. Just slightly. Enough. Lyriel stepped forward. "Lyriel," Kaler started. "Trust me," she said. The words came out before she could question them. But they were steady. Certain. Different. Kaler hesitated. For 1 second. Then, he moved aside. Not far. But enough. Lyriel stepped into the space. Her heart pounded. But not from fear. From clarity. Her hand lifted slowly. The energy responded instantly. But this time, it didn't explode. It spread. Soft. Wide. Reaching. The corrupted wolf nearest to her froze mid-step, its body locking as something unseen wrapped around it, not stopping it violently, but holding it. Lyriel's eyes narrowed slightly, her focus sharpening as she reached further, pushing that same energy outward deeper. "Come back," she whispered. The wolf twitched. Its glowing eyes flickered. For a second, just a second, something else appeared. Something real. Kaler saw it. Brindle saw it too. And his smile faded. "No," he said sharply. Lyriel didn't stop. Her voice steadied. Stronger. "You're still there," she said, her gaze locked on the wolf. "You're not gone." The energy deepened. Wrapped tighter. Not to control. To restore. The wolf staggered. Then collapsed. Not dead. Still. Breathing. Normal. The clearing went silent again. Because this was something else entirely. Lyriel lowered her hand slowly, her breath steady, her eyes clear. And when she looked up again, she wasn't uncertain anymore. She wasn't afraid. She understood now. Not everything, but enough. Brindle stared at her, something darker replacing the confidence in his expression. "You weren't supposed to figure it out this fast," he said. Lyriel met his gaze. Calm. Unshaken. "That's where you made your mistake," she said. And for the first time since this began, Brindle didn't look in control anymore. Brindle's control didn't slip all at once. It cracked slowly, like ice under pressure, thin fractures spreading across something that had once seemed unbreakable. For the first time, his eyes weren't filled with certainty. They were calculating, shifting, searching for something he was quickly realizing he might have already lost. Around him, the corrupted wolves hesitated, their movements no longer perfectly synchronized, their aggression faltering as Lyriel's presence pressed against whatever hold he had over them. The clearing felt different now. Lighter, but sharper. Like the balance had tilted just slightly in a direction he hadn't predicted. Lyriel stood still at the center of it, her breathing steady, her hands no longer trembling. The power inside her wasn't raging anymore. It was listening. "You think this changes anything?" Brindle said, his voice lower now, tighter. Lyriel didn't answer immediately. Because she didn't need to. The answer was already unfolding around them. "You built everything on control," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "And now you're losing it." His jaw tightened. I can take it back. No, she said. One word. Certain. And that certainty hit harder than anything else. Kaler stepped forward then, his presence reclaiming the space between them fully, his voice cold, final. It's over, Brindle. But Brindle didn't retreat. He couldn't. Because this wasn't just about power anymore. It was about pride. And pride didn't surrender quietly. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Brindle said, his gaze flicking briefly to Lyriel before returning to Kaler. This isn't just a gift, it's a threat. Wolves like her don't stay controlled. They destabilize everything. Kaler didn't hesitate. She's not the threat, he said. You are. Brindle's expression darkened. You'd risk your entire pack for her, he demanded. Kaler stepped closer. Yes. No pause. No doubt. And that answer. It shattered something. Not just in Brindle, but in the air itself. Because the pack, both sides, felt it. That wasn't just loyalty. That was choice. And it changed everything. Lyriel felt the bond flare again, stronger, steadier, no longer overwhelming, but anchoring. She stepped forward, coming to stand beside Kaler now, not behind him, not hidden, not protected in silence. Equal. Brindle noticed. And it made him angrier. You don't even know what she is, he snapped. Lyriel met his gaze. I know what I'm not. That caught him off guard. I'm not yours, she said. Silence followed. Heavy. Because that was the moment. The shift. The break. Brindle's control didn't just crack now. It snapped. Then you're nothing, he said sharply. And that was the mistake. Because this time, Lyriel didn't flinch. Didn't shrink. Didn't break. Instead, she stepped forward. Another step. And the energy responded instantly. Not violently, but undeniably. You keep saying that, she said quietly, but you were the one afraid of me. Brindle's expression flickered. Just slightly. But it was enough. Kaler saw it. So did she. You poisoned me, Lyriel continued. You isolated me. You made sure I didn't ask questions. Her voice sharpened now, not louder, but stronger. You don't do that to something nothing. The truth landed. Clear. Unavoidable. Brindle's hands curled slightly at his sides. I did what was necessary. For control, she corrected. For survival. For power, she said again. Silence. Then, Brindle exhaled slowly. And something in him shifted. Not back to calm. Not to control. To something more desperate. Fine, he said quietly. Kaler's stance tightened instantly. Because that tone. It was worse. You want to stand with him, Brindle continued, his gaze locking onto Lyriel again. Then stand. Lyriel didn't move. But she didn't look away either. Brindle nodded once. Slow. Accepting something. Then let's see how strong that choice really is. And then, he moved. Faster than before. Not toward Kaler. Toward her. Kaler reacted instantly, stepping forward to intercept. But Brindle anticipated it, shifting direction at the last second, forcing Kaler to adjust. It was a distraction. A setup. Lyriel saw it too late. Brindle's hand shot forward. Not to strike. To grab. His fingers closed around her wrist. And the moment they did, everything went wrong. The energy inside her surged violently. Not outward. Inward. Like something was being pulled. Drained. Lyriel gasped, her body locking as a sharp, unnatural weakness tore through her chest. Kaler. Kaler moved instantly. But Brindle was already stepping back, dragging her with him. Did you really think I wouldn't plan for this? Brindle said, his voice tight, strained but triumphant. Lyriel's vision blurred. Her strength. Fatting. Vast. What did you? She choked. Brindle's grip tightened. A counter, he said, specifically designed for you. Kaler's growl tore through the clearing as he lunged forward again, but the corrupted wolves surged between them instantly, blocking his path, forcing him back just enough. Let her go, Kaler's voice shook the forest. Brindle didn't listen. He was watching Lyriel. Closely. Studying the effect. Her knees weakened. Her breath uneven. The energy inside her. Flickering. Dimming. You see, Brindle said quietly, power without control is easy to break. Kaler fought through the wolves, faster now, more brutal, his controls slipping as fury took over completely. Touch her again, he said, his voice deadly, and I will end you. Brindle smirked faintly. You can try. Lyriel's head spun, her body struggling to stay upright as whatever Brindle had done continued to drain her strength. But something didn't feel right. Not just the weakness. The connection. She could still feel it. Faint. But there. The bond. Kaler. Her breathing slowed. Just slightly. Her focus shifting inward. Not to the pain. To the connection. Brindle noticed the change immediately. What are you? Lyriel's fingers tightened slightly. Not on him. On herself. On the energy. You're wrong, she whispered. Brindle frowned. What? Lyriel lifted her head slowly, her eyes clearer than they should have been. You think this power comes from me, she said. His grip faltered slightly. But it doesn't, she continued. Kaler felt it. Instantly. The bond. It surged. Not from her alone. From both of them. Together. Brindle's expression shifted. Confusion. Real. What? The energy snapped back. Not weak. Not broken. Stronger. Lyriel's body straightened suddenly as the drain reversed, the force pushing outward instead of inward, breaking Brindle's hold completely as he was thrown back several feet into the snow. Silence slammed into the clearing. Lyriel stood still, breathing steady, eyes clear, power stable. Kaler reached her in seconds, his hand gripping her arm, not to restrain, but to confirm. You okay? He asked. She nodded once. Brindle pushed himself up slowly, his expression no longer confident. Not even controlled. Shaken. That's not possible, he said. Lyriel met his gaze. Calm. Certain. You were never dealing with just me, she said. The truth hit him fully now. Because this wasn't just power. This was connection. Bond. Something he couldn't isolate. Couldn't control. Couldn't break. And that changed everything. Kaler stepped forward, his presence overwhelming now, his voice low, final. It's over. Brindle didn't answer. Because for the first time, he didn't have one. And the war he started was no longer his to control. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the kind that comes just before something ends. Brindle stood in the snow, breathing hard, his composure finally stripped away, his control shattered beyond repair. Around him, the corrupted wolves shifted uneasily, their movements no longer unified, their instincts pulling them in different directions now that his hold had weakened. The forest itself felt different, watching, waiting, like it had chosen a side. Kaler didn't rush this time. He stepped forward slowly, deliberately, each step heavy with authority that no longer needed to be proven. Lyriel stood beside him, steady now, her presence no longer uncertain but anchored, her power quiet, but undeniable. Together, they didn't just look like a threat. They looked inevitable. You should have stayed gone, Brindle said finally, his voice rough, strained. None of this would have happened. Kaler's gaze didn't waver. No, he replied calmly. You just wouldn't have been exposed. Brindle's jaw tightened. I did what was necessary to make this pack stronger. You weakened it, Kaler corrected. I evolved it. You corrupted it. The words hit harder than any blow. Because they were true. Brindle knew it. He just refused to accept it. His gaze flicked to Lyriel again, something bitter settling into his expression. And her, he demanded. You think she won't become a problem? Power like that always does. Lyriel didn't hesitate this time. I'm not your excuse anymore, she said. That ended it. Whatever thread Brindle had been holding onto snapped completely. Then I'll end this myself, he growled. And he shifted. Not slowly. Not controlled. Violently. Bones cracked as his form tore into something larger, darker, more unstable than a normal wolf. His fur was jagged, uneven, his eyes glowing with that same unnatural light as the wolves he had corrupted. But his was worse, stronger, twisted, a reflection of everything he had tried to create. Lyriel's breath caught. He did this to himself, she whispered. Kaler's voice dropped. Yes. Brindle lunged. Fast. Too fast for most to react. But not Kaler. He met him head-on. The impact echoed through the clearing as their bodies collided, force against force, dominance against distortion. Snow exploded beneath them as Kaler held his ground, his movements precise even against Brindle's erratic strength. This wasn't just a fight. This was judgment. Brindle snapped forward again, claws slashing, but Kaler dodged, countering instantly, driving him back with controlled, brutal strikes. The corrupted strength made Brindle unpredictable, dangerous, but unstable. Every move lacked discipline. Kaler had both. Look at what you've become, Kaler said coldly, blocking another strike. Stronger than you, Brindle roared. No, Kaler replied, just broken. The words hit, and Brindle lost control completely. He lunged again, reckless this time. And Kaler took the opening. He moved faster than before, shifting slightly to the side before driving forward with a force that sent Brindle crashing into the ground, the impact cracking the frozen earth beneath him. The clearing shook. Silence followed. But it didn't last, because Brindle got up again. Barely, but still standing, still refusing to fall. Lyriel stepped forward slightly, her eyes narrowing as she watched him struggle, something in her expression changing. Not fear. Not anger. Understanding. He's dying, she said. Kaler didn't look back. Yes. The corruption wasn't just power. It was decay. Burning him from the inside out. He'll take everyone with him if this continues, she added. Kaler's jaw tightened. Because he knew she was right. Brindle staggered forward again, his form unstable now, his breathing uneven, his movements losing precision. But his eyes, still locked on them. You think this ends with me, he rasped. Kaler didn't respond. Brindle laughed weakly. You've already changed the balance. Others will come for her, for that power. You won't be able to protect her forever. Kaler's voice was quiet. But I'll start with you. And then, he ended it. One movement. Clean. Decisive. Final. Brindle's body stilled. The forest went silent. Completely. No wind. No movement. Nothing. Then, slowly, the corrupted wolves began to drop. One by one. Not dead. Freed. The unnatural glow faded from their eyes as whatever hold Brindle had over them broke completely, their bodies collapsing into the snow as exhaustion overtook them. Lyriel exhaled slowly, her shoulders lowering as the tension finally began to release. It's over, she whispered. Kaler stood still for a moment longer, his chest rising and falling steadily before he finally turned back to her. Yes, he said. But his gaze was different now. Not just relief. Something deeper. Because Brindle's final words hadn't been wrong. Others would come. For her. For what she was. Lyriel saw it. Felt it. But this time, she didn't shrink from it. She stepped forward instead, closing the distance between them. "You're not doing this alone," she said. Kaler studied her for a long moment. Then, he nodded. Not as an alpha, but as her equal. The bond settled between them fully now, not overwhelming, not unstable. Solid. Unbreakable. Behind them, the forest slowly came back to life. The war had ended. But something much bigger had just begun. The snow fell softer now, like the forest itself was finally at peace, but nothing about the future felt quiet. By the time they returned to the pack grounds, everything had changed. Word had spread faster than the wind. Wolves gathered in silence, watching as Kaler walked through the clearing, not alone this time. Lyriel was beside him, no longer hidden, no longer overlooked, no longer the broken Omega dragged into the snow. She walked steadily, her posture calm, her presence undeniable in a way that didn't demand attention, but commanded it anyway. The same wolves who had laughed now lowered their gazes. Not out of fear alone, out of recognition. Something had shifted, not just in power, but in truth. Kaler didn't stop until he reached the center. The same place she had fallen. The same place they had watched her suffer. He turned slowly, his voice carrying across the entire pack without effort. "What happened here," he said, "was not discipline, it was betrayal." The weight of his words pressed into every wolf present. And betrayal, when ignored, becomes rot. No one spoke. No one dared, because this wasn't anger anymore. This was judgment. Lyriel stepped forward. And this time, no one looked away. "I believed I was nothing," she said, her voice steady, clear, "because that's what I was told." A few wolves shifted uncomfortably. "I believed I had no place here, no value, no voice." Her gaze moved across them, not accusing, not bitter, just honest. "But the truth is, I was never weak. I was silenced." The words landed deeper than any command. Because they didn't just expose Brindle. They exposed all of them. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was heavy. Reflective. Kaler stepped beside her again, his presence firm, not overshadowing her but reinforcing her. "This pack will not be built on control," he said, "or fear, or silence." His gaze sharpened slightly. "It will be built on strength that does not need to break others to exist." A shift moved through the crowd. Subtle, but real. Because for the first time, they weren't just hearing an alpha. They were witnessing a change. Lyriel felt it too. The difference. The weight of it. But more importantly, the choice. She turned slightly, her gaze lifting toward Kaler, not uncertain anymore, not questioning. "Certain. You said I was yours," she said quietly. The words weren't weak. They weren't dependent. They were deliberate. Kaler held her gaze. "I did," he said. Lyriel nodded once. Then, "I choose that." The bond flared, not violently, not overwhelming, but completely. A quiet, powerful confirmation that needed no audience, but was witnessed by all. Kaler stepped closer. Not as a ruler claiming something, but as a man honoring a choice. "And I choose you," he said. And this time, it wasn't about power. It was about respect. The air shifted again. But this time, it was lighter. War had ended. But something stronger had taken its place. Not just a bond. Not just leadership. A foundation. Something real. Days passed. Then weeks. The pack changed. Not overnight, but steadily. The corrupted wolves recovered, no longer controlled, no longer broken, but rebuilding. The hierarchy shifted, not through force, but through truth. Those who had followed blindly learned to question. Those who had stayed silent learned to speak. And Lyriel, she didn't fade into the background. She grew, not into something feared, but into something respected. Her power didn't dominate. It restored. And that made it stronger than anything Brindle had ever tried to create. Kaler ruled beside her, not above her. And for the first time, the pack wasn't held together by control. It was held together by choice. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the snow reflected gold instead of gray, Lyriel stood at the edge of the forest, her gaze steady, thoughtful. Kaler approached quietly, stopping beside her. "You're thinking again," he said. She smiled slightly. "Always." Silence settled between them. Comfortable. Then, "He was right about one thing," she said. Kaler's expression didn't change. "Others will come." Lyriel nodded. "They will." Kaler turned slightly, his gaze meeting hers. "Then we'll be ready." No hesitation. No doubt. Lyriel exhaled softly, her shoulders relaxing, not because the future was certain, but because she wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. She looked back at the forest, at the place where everything changed. And for the first time, she didn't see fear. She saw strength, not just in herself, but in what they had built. Together. If this story pulled you in, if you felt every moment, every shift, every choice, then you already understand the heart of it. Strength isn't loud, it isn't forced, and it isn't given. It's revealed when everything meant to break you fails. And sometimes, the ones the world tries hardest to silence are the ones it can never control.